This interview that I'm sharing with you today is my chat with Sarah Stevenson, who's also known as the Tini Yogini. Sarah is a certified yoga instructor. She is also trained in psychology and has a degree in psychology, and she is a meditative practitioner in her works. She includes poetry, music, the writings of Jung and other people in her yoga practice. They're really creative, really interesting, really fun things. They're a combination of so many different mediums of how we can become more in tune with ourselves and live a better life. So you'll get an opportunity to do yoga with Sarah and Carl Jung in a video that we will be sharing. But in the live Zoom experience, we're going to be chatting with Sarah about resiliency in these difficult times with COVID and our quarantine. And Jung provides an opportunity and an inroad into how we can create ourselves into more resilient beings by facing our fears rather than running from them, and making ourselves into stronger beings as we learn to be more centered in ourselves. So I hope you'll enjoy this interview. I really enjoyed chatting with her, and I hope to see you at a live, free, Mindful Life Focus Community Zoom event. Thank you.
So I have actually been obsessed with Jung from a very young age, and it has carried through. I'm now 43. It started when I was 14 years old. So I have been particularly attracted to his reckless abandon with accepting the whole self, and just basically his view on how important our unconscious is, equally important as the conscious. And he has so many interesting theories on it and interesting ways to get connected to the unconscious. So that was actually what attracted me to yoga in the first place, because that would always bring me to a place by the time I was in Shavasana after a class, and whether I was beating my body up in a fierce class or just kind of sinking into the body in a nice hatha kind of flow class, by the time I got into Shavasana and lay down, things would just flood me. Similar to like when you're standing in the shower and you just hear the water coming down, and all of a sudden all of these brilliant thoughts start coming up and you have nothing to write them down on. That would happen to me in yoga. And I started practicing so much that I decided to make a business out of it and become a teacher. So this class that I am going to be releasing in particular is just kind of a mixture of my love and adoration for Jung and my love and adoration for the practice of yoga, just to bring the conscious and the unconscious together, how it connects our body, our mind, and our soul, and every layer of that.
Yeah, so cool. So being a psychologist, that's like walking in a candy store for me to pull together movement and psychology and Jung. And for people who are not maybe haven't practiced yoga or aren't familiar with Jung, I think what you do is really approachable and doable. So like this, if somebody's never done yoga before and they experience this video, what do you think you could say to them about it, about how they might want to approach it or take it in?
Well, I think, I have a very gentle nature, especially when it comes to the body. I have a lot of injuries because I've been a very physical person since I was very young. I have terrible knees and neck issues and back issues. So I teach a very gentle class. So there should be absolutely no intimidation with the actual physical asanas and the practice of it. I think the way to approach this is to bring yourself, all of your injuries, whether they are emotional or physical, and bring them to this practice with full presence. And I promise you, you'll be nurtured. There's a lot of breath work that I teach in this particular class that will be helpful. Beautiful music. I have a friend that's a composer, and he donated some really beautiful music for the practice. Inhaling and exhale. I read from the Red Book, some really beautiful, nurturing to the soul pieces, that these conversations that Jung was having with his soul, his forgotten soul. It's like love letters to his own soul. And that's really the type of yoga I teach. It's a love letter to the body and to the self right where you're at. I really, I'm not big on, huge headstands and all of these circus, freakish poses that people are doing now. I'm not Instagram famous in any way. But I really do believe it's a practice, and you don't have to be any religion. You don't have to be any flexibility. You could just sit there and listen to the class or watch it, and it would benefit you in some way. And it's all meant to take off the mat and just to help you through life, in particular this time, but everyday life. What you learn on the mat, you should be able to apply to your everyday life. They should be tools and coping strategies to kind of pull you through.
Yeah. So, I mean, that whole piece of being able to be present where we are and find our way into our own selves, not lose ourselves in this. We had talked a little bit about ways of contact, which for me is so central in Gestalt. And we talked about how you said going out into nature is so important right now for you as a way of dealing with this quarantine. And for Gestalt, that is contact, to contact the self or others or nature. And these ways of connecting into our own self are so crucial right now, to not turn away from the part of ourselves we're not happy with, because you had talked a little bit about how we can avoid being triggered by stressful people or situations right now. And can you share a little bit of how this might help, this kind of practice, in helping us still stay where we are, not run away from the contact, and be able to be more resilient, I think is what you were really talking about with it, in a really special way.
Yeah, I think that's really big right now. I know me personally, and just full transparency, I haven't been sleeping well. I've had, a lot of issues. I'm a very anxious person. That's why I'm so attracted to breathing, breath practices, meditation, and yoga, because they keep me so calm. But I think now I think it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a lot of what we can make of it as well. I think that we can use this time while we're all stuck inside and in quarantine to go deeper into ourselves. It's not going to be, it'll be very rare if we ever have this opportunity again, where we are able to be so triggered and also have the time and space to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And we are so lucky because we have things like Zoom, where we can be in contact with therapists of all types, yoga therapists, physical therapists, psychologists. All of these people can help us through this time. And it's super important that we don't use this time to get drunk and to hide away and to isolate ourselves even more than we are already isolated. Mm-hmm. And you and I were talking earlier about how people are more sensitive to sound now, mm-hmm. and that the birds are louder, and we're all supposed to stay 6 feet apart. Anytime we go out to get groceries, people are terrified of being anywhere near us, and we're so afraid. Let's go toward that. Let's go toward that fear. Let's imagine we're in the store and someone's coming at us. There was something on today, on Sunday morning, that they were talking about how a woman was scared because she was walking next to a woman that didn't have a mask on, and it really triggered the woman that didn't have the mask on, and she ended up spitting on her. Wow. And it's like, that's rough. That's primordial stuff that's coming up and go toward that. Like, let's use this where we're so consumed in our own lives, in, you know, in our cars, and we're so separate from people. Right now, we're really having to look at ourselves. We're really having to, you know, feel all this fear and anxiety and anger. I mean, there's a lot of anger and prejudice and, you know, sadness. And this is an opportunity where we can move closer to it and use the people that can pull you through as tools to teach you coping strategies, so that when this is over, you can actually say that you grew from it, that you're braver now.
Yeah.
You're less anxious now. You have more courage. You're ready to risk. You have more grit because of moving closer to that uncomfortable place that is being triggered in all of us.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really is an opportunity. And we use the term a lot of sitting with yourself, and literally the universe has made us sit with ourselves right now. So, and some people I know are completely alone in their space. Some people are with other people that they're not able to feel comfortable sitting with. So the conflict might come just with the sharing of the small space. And I think that there's opportunity in that to find your resilient self and not run away from it, because this could become, and it is, I know, for some people, becoming a traumatic experience. And every traumatic experience can be an opening point for a transformative experience. And that's what I'm hoping we can create with all of these life focus events, is that opportunities to transform it and just think outside the box of watch another Netflix or, you know, make another cocktail. And, you know, that we're going to be able to create some community here to explore all these colorful, wonderful things and people that are offering things that people never had time for. And so I think you're a wonderful gift in that way. And I've been showing videos on my Mindful Life Focus page so people can donate to you to keep your practice moving until you're out doing it physically with people in physical contact with you. But yeah, I really hope.
I should note that I'm a behavior therapist for special needs children, and I was put in not quarantine. I'm allowed to walk outside, but I'm not allowed to work anymore. So when the quarantine is over, I do have another job, even besides yoga, doing therapy with people. So yeah.
And not only does that inform the work you do, you know, like it always has, but it's necessary right now for you to be able to create yoga experiences. So wasn't that an interesting accident that you got to land yourself out there doing this right now? But yeah, so I hope people will donate to support it and then follow you later, you know, after the quarantine's over, and find their new friend in yoga. So that's
cool.
Because your yoga is so unique, and anybody who watches your videos is going to see that these are not your standard, you know, sun salutation and savasana and now we're done. I mean, they're really creative, and they come out of your creative mind, and nobody does it like you. So one of the points that we brought up in our conversation before this was that you had brought up how Pema Chodron's work really is relevant right now as well, and that kind of integrates into what you were talking about.
Yeah, it goes along the lines of Jungian theology, of what yoga represents. I think what therapy represents, about moving toward that which scares us. There's a philosophy they have in Buddhism that is called heightened neurosis. And the whole practice of that is putting yourself in those situations that grab you and trigger you and cause you to react from an unconscious place where you almost can't control it, you know, like that woman who spit at the other woman with the mask on.
Yeah.
She's saying you go toward that, and then you pair that with whatever your coping strategies are, like the breath, and you kind of toughen your skin up so that you can become you know, you're able to flow through life a little bit better, and you're not so afraid of coming into these situations of isolation. Coming into these situations, it's the, what if I did get sick?
Uh-huh.
What if I did lose my house? What if my husband left me? What if I gained 10 pounds? What if it's that kind of feeling? So it's going there without actually going there, but going there kind of emotionally, and then working through it with breath practices, with aromatherapy, with nature, going out in nature, with music, sounds, with light therapy, with, talking through it, facing it, and then moving through it, so that when you actually are going through it again, you'll be less caught, you'll be less triggered, you'll be less, just instinctually hitting at it or fearing it.
Yeah, you've been there before. You've been there before at that point. You've been through it. And the movement part is so important. Any kind of movement is crucial to not being traumatized.
Yeah, we hold all of these emotions, especially repressed emotions, in our body, and it does get stuck there. And there's a reason why our shoulders hurt and we can't move our neck or our back. Mm-hmm. And it's not always related to injury. It's a muscle, that just won't let go, because it's holding that fear. It's holding that anxiety. It's holding that rage. It's holding that sadness, that contempt, and it's okay to have the emotion. Not any emotion is wrong. It's what you do with the emotion that is wrong. Yeah. And it's how you react to it. So just allowing that emotion, that feeling to be there, and cathartically move through it, process it.
Beautiful. And did you have a quote from Pima that had struck a chord in all of this?
I have a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes from Jung. And I know, I'm sure Pima has recited it. But Jung says, as far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light of meaning in the darkness of mere being. And that's all we are doing. That's the purpose of what we are doing. Man cannot live a meaningless life. He can't. And it feels so meaningless and purposeless right now. We have to bring meaning back. We have to bring purpose back. And it's all right inside of us. All you need is yourself. All you need is your mind. All you need is your body. There's enough things you need to process with that if you were in quarantine for the next 6 years, you'd still have work to do. Yeah. So this is just a tiny etch in the huge novel of what we need to do. This is just the beginning of the work of what we need to do.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to kindling some light in this. Thank you.